Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Terry Ellison. I have a special guest on I really want you to hear. She's one of my daughters in the Lord. She's been with New Life Church almost since its conception. I've known her throughout time. She's a very loyal member of the church, and she is none other by Miss Songbird herself, Kwatasian Hunt. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Pastor. How are you?
I'm doing super great.
Good.
Um, I want to share something that you've actually getting ready to share with the world. And I've watched you sing over the years and be in the choir. And the thing is now that the Lord is taking you in even a greater direction about some things that have happened in your life. And so the Lord has led you now to write a book. And the book is called What Gain? God's Promise of Restoration.
Mhm.
Now, my first question to you is, where do you get the title "What Gain"? I know you wrote a song about what gain. You've had a conference about what gain. What is the significance of what gain? And it asked the question, what gain?
Okay. What gain came about when I was just really going through a very dark place. God was dealing with me on a lot of stuff. I was struggling in my marriage, struggling with my children, struggling in finances. But I would get up Sunday after Sunday, go and sing in the choir, sing on the praise team, participate in drama ministry. And after my husband and I, we lost our baby boy, um, the question was, God, what am I gaining by serving you? So that is where what gain came from.
Wow, wow. And so you had the conference, and I got so many different reports saying how so many people were blessed by the conference that you had. But now you've taken a step beyond that, and you've called your book "What Gain." And I scanned through the book, and then I started reading the book, and just couldn't put it down because it was so revealing. You never know what people are going through, and sometimes we hide behind our gifts and anointings. But you really bring out in this book about what you were thinking through those times of presenting God in your gifts. Um, One part you talk about uncovering yourself. Tell me about that.
That chapter, Uncovering the True Worshiper, um, in the book, I, I mentioned that I learned to master, I mastered covering up my pain, my hurt, and everything by using my gift. The average person who would encounter me, they would, say things. Oh, you're so highly anointed. God bless you. You have such power, but I was really dying on the inside, and I came to the realization that if I was going to serve God, if I was going to praise Him, if I was going to sing praises into His name, if I was going to worship God, I had to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And I was not doing that because I was covering up
Hmm.
all of the issues that I was going through, and I was using my gift to do that.
Well, the thing is, even before you get there, you really kind of give your testimony about your encounters with God,
Mhm.
um, and how you first experienced it on a elementary level, and then you keep progressing as life goes on. Let's talk a little bit about that because so many people start there. That was so intriguing to me. Tell me about that.
So my grandmother, just an amazing woman. She served in so many areas of the church, and one of the auxiliaries she served in was matron's board, and oftentimes they would have the matrons meeting at her house. And if you knew my grandmother was very spiritual. She loved the Lord. She served in the church. She served her family. She was a powerful woman. But if you got caught in the living room during her matron's meeting, you had to stay there for the entire meeting. And it was one of those long meetings. And so it was these ladies, they would pray, they would worship, they would discuss business. My grandmother would make this punch with ginger ale and sorbet, something. It would be really good, and they would have food, but the main thing was that they would worship and pray. And I didn't understand because as a young girl, I don't know much about what's going on, but it was in that moment that I was trapped in the
Mm.
living room with my grandmother during one of her matrons meeting that I was introduced to the Lord. And it was, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It was just an overwhelming feeling that I can remember as a young girl, like, why am I having these feelings? And I didn't understand why, but I know now that was, and I put it in the book, it was, God resting on the inside of me. I was introduced to the one who would love me with an unconditional love. And so I just recall me crying as a little girl. And I even asked during that in the book, why am I crying? Nobody did anything to me. But it was just the love of God, experiencing and having that encounter with God. And
But
yeah.
then you go from there, and then you start. There was a school you had experience you had in school, right? Uh, didn't you have some kind of experience in your school? Uh,
Oh, that was, oh, in chapter 2.
yeah.
Oh, now that was I was a teen mom. That
Mhm.
was a very trying time in that particular chapter, because it just really um, give account to, um, in a sense, me turning away from God in chapter 2. The dark lens with a green hue. And I talk about that morning having to walk, me and my son, or having to walk him to daycare because no one would give me a ride. It was storming outside. And then I just so happened to look up, and because the rain stopped, it just stopped.
Mm.
And I looked up, and a funnel cloud was in the sky. And we made our way to the daycare, and they were like, you really can't get back out here. The weather is just too dangerous. It's too bad. But I did anyway. And on my walk to school, I I became angry and frustrated and bitter, and and was bold enough to even want the tornado to come down
Mm.
and just swallow me up, because I felt like no one else understood what I was experiencing as a teen mom. And no one else really could understand the depths of the grips that I was in. And so by the time I made my way to school, the self-hate, the self-loathing, the I don't fear God anymore. All of those things were just they just really just I began to, in the book I said, I began to replay those whispers that the enemy would say to me, that you're nothing. God doesn't dwell in unclean places. And so those were the things that I began to speak. And, we're mindful. Even Pastor, you've talked about this. Be mindful about what you put in the atmosphere. But at
Yes.
that time, I didn't care. I didn't care what I put out in the atmosphere. I didn't care about the prince of the air. I didn't care about those things in that moment.
Wow. I mean, it's really a good book. I mean, it's really a good
Thank
book.
you.
It's almost you like you bear all. Um, and we skip now to the person that's at church every Sunday. I even have shared about my experiences of losing a child, but now you lost yours. I remember being in the hospital room with you, and you had just lost your child, and it was very devastating to you. At first, when I saw on your face, you were in awe. You just couldn't really believe that it had happened. But then things begin to change for you, and your thinking from there. Let's talk about that.
Anger. My thinking shifted to pure anger. I felt like God had allowed me to hear the heartbeat of my baby as I was, once I got to the hospital and everything. They hooked me up to the monitors, and I thought that everything would be okay. I thought that, okay, the baby is going to be fine. I may have to stay in the hospital for a little while until I give birth, but the baby will be fine. And I'm asleep. They give me medication, and it causes me to get sleepy. But when I awakened, it was just quietness all around me. And the doctor had come in. The doctor had come in. The 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 priest, or the chaplain from the hospital was there. Leon, my husband, was there. and they told me that the baby died.
Mm.
Basically, they had exhausted all medical measures to save the baby, but it did not work. And it was almost as if I just, that sinking, you ever had a sinking feeling?
Oh,
That
absolutely.
sinking, yes, that sinking feeling took over, and that dark cloud with the greenish hue that I mentioned in the book returned. God doesn't love
So how was church for you after that?
church was, I would still go to church every Sunday. I would, I would try and dig for the humility, some type of, Lord, let me have the humility to at least lift my hands and tell you thank you and tell you that I love you. But I had so much anger built up from that loss. It was a struggle to do. And I forced my smile. I forced my joy. I faked my joy. Anytime I would be invited to go and minister through song somewhere, I would leave so quickly because I did not want to interact with anyone because I just, I couldn't do it. It was a struggle for me. So after that, even going to church was a struggle. But I came. It was something in me that just would not just let me stop coming.
Mm. It's so many things we could talk about. I mean, so many things that we could talk about. Um, but when you get to the part where you say uncovering the true worshiper, um, let's talk about that because you really talk about the cover up and then the broken place, and then you say about the actual damage of isolation that you had. Just briefly talk about that.
I had to, I really had to spend time with God. Um, it, I had to spend time with God in order for me to get back to the place where I needed to be. And in the book, there's a moment um, where I said that I felt like I was being rocked and God was healing me. And those things that I was dealing with, the depression and the unforgiveness and the anger, those things started being broken off. I could feel it. I could feel the weight being lifted off of my life and off of my shoulders. And it was a process that was very, very painful. And uncovering, in order for me to be uncovered and to just really worship God in spirit and in truth, I knew that I needed to spend more time because at one moment I wasn't talking to him. I was not praying. Um, I was not talking. I wasn't doing those things. My relationship with God it was it was not there. And so
You
I
said
knew I
this.
needed to.
You said this also affected your marriage, your family. Um,
Oh, absolutely. I was in isolation from the time that um, I came home from work. I was in isolation. I would be in my study, like this room right here, or in the bedroom. I would really be isolated from the family. I did not feel like um, I was. I couldn't connect with anyone.
mm,
I struggled to connect with anyone, and so I isolated myself. And that was probably one of the most damaging things that I could have done, because when I isolated myself, I can just hear, I can hear the enemy almost more than I even heard God. It's
mm.
like, what are you gonna do? You got a son that's locked up. You got a son that's dead. Ha ha. All of those taunting things that the enemy came in with. That is what I heard during my time of isolation. But in the book, I thank the Lord because even during my time of isolation, I was on his mind.
Mm.
And so, and in that, in a moment, there's a moment where I finally hear God. And that's when something broke on the inside of me.
Thank you, Jesus.
The
Uh,
same that happened. I'm gonna say this. I'm sorry. The
Go
same
ahead.
thing that happened when I came to New Life. I was in probably the most broken state, and I remember Pastor you saying, when you walk through those doors, you're coming to a hospital, and and that made so much sense to me because I was hurting. I was spiritually bleeding all over the place. And when I was in there that first Sunday that I went to New Life, it was so many people there. It was crazy, and they were shouting and dancing. I'm a Baptist girl. We weren't used to that. And when I do not recall exactly what you preached, but I knew in that moment something happened, and I can feel the presence of God. And I tried to escape that place,
Wow.
but I've been there ever since.
Wow.
Yeah,
Finally, you got in this book, your last chapter is about the rebuilding of me.
yeah.
Let's talk about it.
So, when we okay, so in part of that, I wrote something that says in transient out for delivery, delivered, or something like that. I'm just going to open it up real quick, just so I can make sure that I'm saying it right. It says in transient, on time, out for delivery, and delivered. And so we all know when we order something and it sends us to the UPS or USPS website, it'll tell us the status in which our delivery is. And that is what how the rebuilding of me happened. I had to go through. I was in transit. I had to go through the process. God had to take me out. He had to, in a sense, I had to spend more time with him. I had to be out for delivery. And so what I mean by that is oftentimes we continue to want to operate and knowing doggone well we really need to be out for delivery. And sometimes we need to sit down. And I found myself really it was a tough process, but I've learned that God chastens those who He loves, and I felt like He truly loved me. It was a tough discipline, but I needed to be out for delivery. And when God put me back out there, I was out there with an assurance of His promise, an assurance that I was delivered, an assurance that He trusts me with His anointing, and so that started, just the process of rebuilding. Kwatasian.
Well, I'm just really glad that you allowed the Lord to uncover you because that mask actually was needed to be lifted so others could actually understand that they're not the only ones. A lot of times, like you said, the enemy isolated you and put all kind of ideals in your mind. And a lot of people have been isolated right now. They don't know. They think they're the only one going through. They think nobody, everybody else is good, but them. Everybody around them is doing well. And you'd be surprised. They're just as masked as you are. And I really believe that
Right.
this book is going to really help a lot of people because you became transparent. The first altar call I made at New Life that I was transparent with, that's when the altars filled because people are looking for how do I get through this? And so I'm excited about this for you. And your book
Thank you.
launch is going to be on when?
March
The
15th.
15th, right?
Yes.
March
March
15th.
15th.
Okay.
Yes.
So how do we get your book?
Okay. To order the book, you can go to my website, whatgain.com, or you can go to Amazon and just type in What Gain God's Promise of Restoration. Or if you want to be bold enough to try and spell my whole name and try and find it, you can do that. But definitely, definitely you can visit me at whatgain.com. And I'm praying that people would look at my story and be encouraged. I know I said in the book, I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but I
Right.
want them to be encouraged because I love an eternal, infinite, wise, all powerful God.
Well, I really thank you for sharing. And what's the price of the book?
The price is $15.99.
$15.99. Okay. Well, you know what?
Yes.
Everybody wants you to come out and purchase that book, do exactly what she said, Amazon.com or her website, or if you want to just type it in her spell Kwatasians, it's Kwatasian, right?
That
I
is
think I got it
correct.
right. Okay. And so I said it wrong for years, but I got it right. I've had to call you enough
Oh,
times
that's okay.
to know how to say it right. And so I'm really
Right.
proud of you. And we believe that this book is going to bless a lot of people. Any final words that you like to say to anybody?
Yes, one, I would like to thank my pastor. Yes, I can be quite selfish. This is my pastor,
I'm
and my
privileged
first
by me.
lady,
I'm privileged
because
to be your pastor. I
it,
really do. I
it
feel that way. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh yeah, but pastor is mentioned a few times here in this book. But I also want to thank my first lady, Dr. Giovanna Ellison, because she came up to me and she said, Quatasian, you need to do more with What Game. And with
Well,
that statement, I launched the What Game Women's Conference and the book. And so, speaking of the conference, the What Game
yeah.
Women's Virtual Conference is going to be April 3rd. We have a master class, we have breakout sessions, we have a panel discussion. We're going to be discussing mental illness and women in the church. And
Wonderful. Now,
and
tell
God
us
just
how do we register for that?
you can go to whatgang.com to purchase tickets. Tickets are only $25.
Okay.
Or you can go to Eventbrite and purchase tickets. Just type in What Gang Women's Virtual Conference.
Well, all right. That's going to be good. We'll make sure that's on the screen so everybody can get that. Real proud of you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I know you're going to be a blessing in the conference, and the ideals that you have that God has given you is definitely going to reach out to a lot of people. So we're just real proud of you and so glad that God is using you, and I'm proud of you. And that's all I have for now. And everybody, remember, order the book. You need the book, and
Yes. Or
it'll really bless you. I mean, it's just a wonderful book. As a matter of fact, we have on the screen now that what gang. She has a little picture of herself on your little shoes, and I see your shoes on there. Hey, well, you look great. All right, that's all we have, and we'll see you next time. God bless you all.
thank you. God bless you, Pastor. Bye bye.
Bye bye.